When you put your mind to anything in travel, it's amazing when you come in line positions. Once you understand the consistency, once you understand the high volume, the velocity, the vacuum, all levels of set lines, acceleration, and Mach. Once you understand the realism inside your system, how everything is controlled of your system, outside, inside, in core of you, everything comes into its reality real time. Now everything is volume. That's putting you in positions how you see it through settings, through an evac, how to see it through all lines of dimensions of space and time measured, space and time scale. How you perceive things through consciousness, that's what changes everything. But you have to modify that from inside of you. It's not just you through imagination. It's living your reality of who you are inside your system. So everything inside comes outside of you in reality. That's what it is. So it's a projector to a projection. It's just a film. A window frame comes out. So everything you hear comes out. And then you coordinate it and you perceive it in reality. Okay, it's there now in real time. You changed something. You brought something in. Right? You're not reminding yourself. You're not remembering what you did in position. So all of this, and how to codify that through encryption. So we're coming into all of this, how to address that through settings of codifications and travel. Okay, for direct line sight. In travel communications. Very powerful live screen. What's position, location, settings, and travel. So everything I say through live doesn't mean I'm live. I say what it is. I'm in control of what I do in travel. Live is the consistent levels in position of intelligence, in volume, and location of existing. Live. See? I codify it through encryption. 3 lines of tractions, 2 lines of measure. Volume setting vast. Existing 3 lines of platforms and 4 settings and signals and 1 grounds. Sets communication system, all through tractions, setting overcross location to its pyramid in set position. There's the pyramid in setting, all through set position. Okay? So codifying that is 1 signal, 1 ground lines, 1 service, 1 traction, 1 division, 1 calculation, modification, ground lines of setting. Okay, overcrossing screen, all through pi. Setting communication lines and ground lines of surface and track communications. Okay? Setting ground lines of set position line, high centers, lines of travel. So codify grounds, codify measure, codify scales. All I'm doing is just changing graph communications to its settings. Okay, that's constantly what I'm doing. Laser tractions all through pi, set position lines of pi, setting lines of pi. Okay, codify systems, encryptions. Directing lines of grounds, center core system lines of travel, and center position. All right? Setting flux. Now going through pi is a central system of 12 lines of measure, 3 scales. Flux over screen in 4 settings. Over line sequence, over panels, and core centers, lines of travel communications and system. Okay, and then we go with centers. Okay, it looks like lacing line communication and confusion, but it's not. It's all adaptations of balance inside tractions. How I set things up. Modify the grounds, center core system lines of travel, direct lines of link. High process communications ongoing, existing, and existing in panel communication setting. Open all sequence in a configuration system off the travel. Ooh. Now it's really coming up information inside and out track locations, inside the settings. Outside provision, inside tractions. Okay, guys? Center core system lines of travel. Doesn't look like much, but it's all simulation. Understanding depth activates the point lines of graph and communication setting. Imagination is everything in travel, guys. I put up so many structure lines and schematics. Okay, so we're going to go through 4 waving panels. Look at this. All this is done through L. This is all done through L, the letter L. So I'm just trying to show you how powerful it is. All this is line screen adaptations and travels, all done through D. A, AD, ADS, all through configuration setting, triangulations, Fibonacci, location set in a box. It's all a mapping sequence. Now understand the higher conversion set location is brain setting, location to its adaptation of cerebral. Your imagination cortex is the theta. Box frame, window frame, setting lines of 3 travels, endpoint communications, right? We configure the system in 3 centers, okay, through primers, setting 1 platform, 2 platforms, Okay, overline sequence, ground lines of shift, lines of anomaly, and 45 lines of flux. Okay, ground core centers, one center, one traction inside track locations. Right, so the perimeter is outside, not outside. All right, so that's 12 lines of signals, 12 lines of grounds, 12 lines of measure, 34 correlations times 2 equals lines of 36 fields in travel. Okay, all right, center core system, downshift lines of anomaly. Center communication lines of ground, lines of surface and traction. All right, so we go inside lines and opposite direct signals and ground lines of settings, a 3-setting measure. Then we go through platforms of E, city track location lines of A over C. Okay, then we go through the ground lines of center, surface, and travel communication setting, all through measure and scale. So all I'm doing is creating teleportation systems in travel. That's all I'm doing, nothing else. Inside and outside through traction. All right. It measures the scales, waving lines of panels, high process, position locations, waving screen adaptation system. Moves on its own. It moves on its own. Doesn't matter how I add it, signal line, core centers, lacing lines, overlapping sequence, overlapping lead rays, high centers, line of travel communications, inside traction. Inside position locations, simulation. Okay, so it's much easier if you just let things go, you know? All right, so setting lines of grounds. You guys have another test up in lines to solve levels of encryptions, box frames, waving screens, mapping sequence. So we'll go through 3 coordinates, okay, and 1 measure and 4 box. So we have 3 coordinates lines, 1, 3 centers, 3 lines of C equals lines of question. So the question marks the system lines of question equals lines of C, okay? Now, getting ground lines of course centers, remember, the question is how you formulate the codification lines in encryption. Encryption is over 1 cycle, 1 center, 3 track relation setting, and confirmation. All right, so you're confirming your system the notification grounds, center line units, 3 signals, and 2 graphs. Okay, and then change the communication lines into solar graph communication lines, dimensional sail, and travel communications. Okay, and they override the sequence in high position lines of travel. Okay, now, get in the ground lines of setting and change the question marks into X marks lines of 1, DX lines of position. That process 1 platform equals lines in question again. Set position lines of 3 measure. Sets lines of box frame and triangulation flux and set tractions. Okay, so all I'm doing is basically codifying it through encryption setting through a binary that sets lines of travels. Setting signature lines of 1, 0, process lines of 1 center and 0 track communications. That overlines the sequence, lines of panels, that process communication lines of ground lines of surface and traction. Okay, measure and scale, 3 lines of zeros, flux over 3 in line, position lines of sonar, echo, screens, foxtrot, direct signals and grounds calculation. Okay, overline measure, setting lines, communication setting, and travel communications, and direction. And then we go high lines of grounds and center communication setting. 1, 2, overline sequence. Okay, it's moving by itself. Hold on. 3 lines of setting and position of sonar. And then we platform the screen lines adaptation above signal and travel communications. And measure and scale. All right, so we ground the lines of 1 over cross lines of 2, E factors over line in process calculations and trigonometry. Now trigonometry, geometry, not geometry, triometry. Geometry is the opposite cycle, which is the core center location of travel, direct setting, modification lines, and high position locations of direct and redirect, setting, single location setting, right? So it's like a simon, something similar to the word, phrase, line communication, the phrase, the line communication, the reverberation, set, position, frequency, lines, and grounds in your alphabetical system lines and high travels, right? So set, position, lines, and high calculation screen lines. Geometry, triometry is nature lines of recourse. Sets lines of travel in position lines of course center located and high center located navigations to its navigation system, all through Navigator. Okay, so triometry is a nature lines of resource lines into information panels. 3 track correlations and provisions in set lines and stargates and measure. Overcrossing screens in travel communications, all through direct signals and grounds. Okay, very complicated stuff, but platforms are setting E factors over screen, directing signal lines and grounds, continuous force, high force lines, high direct signals, ground lines of surface in geometry setting. Now the geometry has a pattern. Sets communication lines of grounds, the center, surface, and travel. all through communications inside position, all through tractions. All right, so we symbolize the tractions, the direct signals of webbing, light lines of high positions. Now, I need you guys to get into 20 equals lines of 80, 80 positions, equals lines plus line and negative over lines of positive, position lines of negative over 0. Okay? Now, 20 centers is 2 tractions, 2 vision lines, 1 cycle. Pattern course centers, lines of 0, process lines of 3 lines, settings of travel. Directing lines of grounds. Now we go through simulations line 2 track correlation setting to 1 decimal point, setting 8 lines of 0, and 0 point lines of 8 travel communications and direction. Very complicated stuff, but it's a lot of fun when you just let everything go location. Geometry to geometry is trigonometry. See, 3 lines of cycles. Right, so trigonometry. Okay, metric meters. Okay, ME lines are TR lines are Y. No, that's trigonometry. Okay, geometry is geometric. Geotherium. Let's go through the theorem settings of stat and process and cerebro. Star course centers lines of travel. Okay, so we got trigonometry, geometry, okay, and trigonometry. All right. High C lines of course centers and line position locations, metric meters and scale. It's direct communications. Trigonometry, trigonometry, and geometry. Okay? Trigonometry. All right, the opt signals puts lines course centers in covert. Directed signals lines of opt screens adaptations of flux. Setting lines of course centers and nature lines of recourse. Setting communication lines of box frames and trigonometry. Geometry, right? Geometry is overline signal. Okay? So configuration settings, high position of 3 lines of flux over windows and travel. 3 ground lines of service over cross location screen lines adaptations of surface and travel through trigonometry. Trigonometry is lines of tree lines, course centers of bypassing screens. Directing lines of grounds over flux over 3, sending lines of 6 over lines of measure and scale communicates lines of balance and travel communications. Okay, sending signals over line patterns, over line position, location, measure, and scale communications. All right, so it's another word and a phrase word and line conditions. I can say word because I know what a word is. You don't know what a word is until you codify it. Word is a width. Remember, it's an online going and exists in the 4 lines of panels. Operation relays into its division. Word. So it doesn't change anything your graph and communication of my imagination setting core. So the core system lines of travel, 3 lines of signals, 3 lines of grounds and all levels. Trigonometry, geometry, and high course centers lines of travel. Sending course or recourse reconfigures the system in travel communication inside tractions. Laser track centers line direction. Okay, now we go through the high centers of XC1000 inside position. Platitude lines of recourse reconfigures and setting imagination core line calculations in a stream. Sending course, line direct signals, ground lines of surface travel through traffic highways. Ground lines of settings, all through communications setting and travel communications. Okay? So remember, everything's inside position, all through high calculations. All right, so we got window frames. We got an XT24000 and position of mothership over cross location screen line. Inside tractions, all through highways and direction. All right? Setting schematics lines. Let's get into coloration of lines. Purple line signals, 3 lines of signals, ground lines of 1 set, position lines of travel. Signify, core lines of configuration light codes, seconds on meters over cross location of screen. Okay, directing lines of panels, over line signals and ground communications. Right, this is all through a map, this is all through a measure and scale. All right, setting core centers red over line signals, 3 lines of grounds in set position 1 and position over 2 and overline sequence of 3. Okay, all through traffic runway. Okay, highways, directing launch pads. Let's get in line signal location 3 1s and signal. Over cross location inside track communication simulation. Okay, so we go through the ground line service into blue over cross location inside track communication, inside traction. Okay, and then we go into yellow, which is proceeding. Same measure and scale of the earth, right? Proceed, caution, lines, course centers, green means go, and red is line position stop when needed. Or stop when go, and line position locations when you get an arrow of indication setting of travel and 3 lines of signals. Okay, ground list settings, open line signals of panels, communication across lines of angles and platforms. Measure and scale, 3 lines of signals, 4 lines of track locations. Setting in travel communications. In window graph communications, green line. Okay. Then we go through dimension lines of settings in window frames and communications and setting attractions. Directing lines of grounds, overcross, and 3 lines of signals, and 3 lines of communication lines of panel and travel. Okay, then we overline the panel communications and inside travel communication of its webbing. Cross angles, box frames. All right, so we set a signal. We go into get black lines, 1x8000 platform, 2 lines of signals, 3 lines of centers, 3 travel, and 4 communication lines of graph, and set attractions. All through measure, all through scale. The more you work inside, the more you send in settings. Overline sequence, 3 lines of signals and travel communications, direction. Okay, and then we change the platforms of communication lines of angles and travel inside travel communications. Okay, we have a direct line view and 3 lines of signals and travel. Okay, overline cross locations, lines of high set position all over the volume and travel. So you don't need to create anything because it's all inside your simulation. See all the shapes? The geometry, the trigonometry, it's all set position lines of travel. That's how I see the lines of 3Gs. Or lines of course centers, how I see it in track communications. Geometry is not geometry because there's a constant continuous force that keeps running its system. It constantly keeps changing the time measure of scale and balance. But it's an ongoing system that never stops running its own system, its own operation, of its own formula, of its own equations and setting and travel. Okay, point lines of marks, overcross screens, and 3 lines of measure. Okay, and then we got the highways and travel and set attractions. Right, and then we have the grounds and set position, all through communications and travel. All right, remember everything in the simulation is inside traction. Okay, guys, so don't get confused your anomalies or what you're seeing through provision. All right, but it's amazing how you come into that and set it from inside. So you're scaling from below, from above, right? And that's how you bring Google in. When you bring Google in, this is how you see the roads, the graphs, and the screen location to a system, all through intersection. That's all those attractions. If you're looking at Globonautics, now Globonautics is its nodes. Nodes is the networks lines, the operation lines, the direct signals, and individual location setting. It puts all course centers lines of travel. Let's get into mapping sequence lines of panel, setting process lines of 3 cycles, 3 centers of travel. Process lines of signals over cross locations inside travel, in position on point lines of graph, communication lines of travel. Okay, so then you got earth line 1, point lines of graph, setting 3 symbols and 3 tractions. Okay, direct signals. That's breaking modification ground, over line cross location inside travel communications, outside line connections. Okay, setting lines of in, setting lines of out. See, inside is out now, outside is in. All right, so spectrum comes in art lines, high center interference, and position of kaleidoscope and screen. Directing ground lines, outline signals, and 3 lines of ground lines, of course, centers of Fibonacci screen location and setting. Sets lines of communication, high lines, a high force communication with surface. Okay, they communicate with each other inside position, right? Sets lines of 3, 3 lines of communications. Setting line track correlations of center, operation system, all through travel. Okay, high course centers lines of communication setting. Setting travels inside position and center position. Traveling into the eye cycles, high correlation setting receptors and direct signals and grounds. One set crosses line and one direct signals on the ground center location of surface. Set of course system, lines of all lines, templates, tablets, in-screen adaptations of flux. See? Different communication lines of shapes in seconds, minutes, and hours, all through the eye receptor. This is an eye and set position. Okay? That's an eye. This is another eye in set position, all through tractions, all through direction. 2 eyes in sequence. But you can see how it constantly changes the travels inside position to telepathy signals. All through grounds, all through surface, all through traction. Okay, there's the eye, there's the eye, there's the eye. So the eye is traveling through outside, inside track location, another eye line setting. All right, so modify the grounds and symbolism inside line rotation, surface attractions. Complicated stuff, but it's a lot of fun. Inside the eye, there is in setting. Look at this. Inside the actual eye itself. Look at that. Oh, it's a lot. Setting provisions to system lines of travel. You see the eye setting. Set positions here inside traction locations. What's going on inside? Travel position point lines of graph, floaters are offsetting, offline positions to measure and scale. Oh, that's not good. So the central system's particle extreme line to core centers brings in the high and insecurity lines of panels. Process lines inside line rotation inside position, outside line conditions. Changes communication lines at grounds, high center location of floaters. Sets lines of sequence lines communication high centers, so communications back in balance. Boom. All in set position. All through the eye centers and travel. Okay? So getting in sequence lines and mapping sequence is to understand how to see that and measure in scale. This opens all communication lines and grants in set position. So let's go through 3 perimeters, lines of pi, 3 signals and 3, right? And then we add 1 graph, 1 panel, 1 traction. Okay? Then we go through platforms of C lines of E over setting. Okay? 3 signature lines of patterns, process lines of 1, process lines of 2. Okay, and then we overcross the screen lines of platforms over E or factors over C. Then we go to the center, and then we go through center positions, operation cycle. There's your pyramid, inside tractions. Everything's inside. Everything's worked inside. Everything's operation of center. The one thing that doesn't change is you in the center. You pivot your system. That's all you do. You expand out lines in graph communications, inside travels. Inner space, outer space, inner spectrum, outer spectrum, inner norm, outer norm, inner lines, inner line, core centers, inner circuit, outer circuit line communications, any in travel. Okay, but you're never out of box frame, right? There's nothing here, there's nothing here, nothing here, nothing here. That's empty space. Everything inside is inner space. Everything outside is outer space, but it's all inside the inner core of you, of perceiving your position of consciousness. All right, so sending track centers and direct signals at grounds inside position. Highline signals, highline division, and location settings. There's the eye in sequence, all right? How it sees lines of perimeters, it's an open line panel, and travel communication setting, all through tractions. Eye centers, high direct signals and position, setting line communications. All right, so this is what goes on in settings. All those veins inside your eye, that's the way they are in tractions. All different angles, right? A 4-line signal. But everything is done from inside of you. There's your inner spectrum. The constantly changes modification grounds. Center core system, XT1000s here, coming at platform at 2 angles, in position of 1 cycle and 1 center travel communication inside the eye. Inside the eye. Hua. That's what's going inside your eye. All right, so directing lines of panels, process calculation of ground lines of service. Now the mapping sequence sets position here in 3 settings, 4 tractions and 6 lines of calculation. Okay, and then we come in this, and we come into this through pi, 3 lines of signals of sonar. Then we get into box frame, over cross location of screen. Okay, and then we go through triangulation flux and set position. Triangulations over box. Okay, different angles, different points. Setting communication lines of grounds is track location to a system, right? All 3 settings. But always turn it around in a 4 communication setting, bring it back home through conversion. Because anything changed to this anomalies, it's out of sequence, out of panel. Then we go through 3 provisions, outline, inside position lines of travel. Okay, and then we overcross the line condition setting, northeast lines of west lines of travel, and south communications. So you're constantly going through north, east, west, and south, all on clocking through pi in a 24 system. All through tractions, all through directions, all through inside track communication. There's your highway. Inside, right? Now to bring it out is knowing exactly how to come into the width, the mass. See, now you can see it coming into high centers. To work with the inside position, you got to work with inside lines of track communications. Okay, to bring out the depth of everything in wall sequence, of panels of communication lines of travel, inside and outside setting, right? Set position here. You're here in set position right here, going into your pyramid. You're going into your pyramid, but you can see it through process line. The scales position lines of 4 travels into 3 indicates the setting XT1000, XT200, XT1 center, 1 travel, and DX lines of 1. Process calculation lines of grounds and set position all levels of 4 measures in scale. Sets communication high centers into 3 lines of scale. Sets line graph communication lines of 4 lines of scale and a 45 angle in set position. Bring it back home in equation. Is it in setting in sequence? Yes, it is in travel. There it's in set position. All through mapping sequence where you get position lines of coordinations. Coordinates and lines of pi. Have a direct line link. Okay, so now we get line screen adaptations of 3 lines of flux, crossing angles and point lines of graph communications. High lines of travels. Now we go through the platforms. It's very powerful when you get the platforms this way. 3 signals, lines of grounds, crosses, lines, and box frames, and position theta of communications and setting. Okay, it's going to get more complicated now because we're coming into structures of buildings and all through attractions, right? All through direct signals and ground lines of surface and travel communications. Okay. So, what just stand the outer space, outer space, outer space, outer space, inner space? Sequence lines of 12 settings, nebula course lines of triangulation box into Fibonacci screen. Directing signal lines into Y screen, into all levels inhibitors, 3 lines of signals of 3 zeros. Setting communication lines indicates in setting as 0 gravity. Setting lines of 0, 1 equals lines of triangulation, position of all levels into Y screen locations into time capacitor. That's a formula equation in setting the set lines of attractions. Right. So we have 0 operations of 4 sequence lines of panels and data process communication lines of grounds. Over line sequence. High panels have communications inside travels in point communication setting and set calculations. Measure on scale and communication lines of grounds and high centers. Right? So this formula is now changed now because I changed the angle. So I got to add the symbolism lines of attractions in 4 panels of communication setting that waves the system lines of travel. Over cross screens, high direct signals of ground lines of surface and set position all measured in scale communications. Hieroglyphics, hieroglyphics. Tone measure, rhythms, patterns, and track communications. All right, so platforms over 1 over cross lines, 2 lines of travels inside lines, 0 line operation signals, sending ground lines of set position over 6. Now we cross the lines of signals and symbolism, cross location setting and measure, scales communication high lines, process and communicate down lines of shift, truth narrative, false narratives in 3 cycles, 3 ground lines of setting and travel communications. Opens all signals into a teleportation vessel and travel. All right, so we got signified ground now. 3 lines of signals and travel through its pyramid. Ask for direction into location to its calculations. Screen lines, adaptations of structure divisions. Holographic screening. Directing lines of 4 centers of 3. Set position of 2. And position lines of 1 measure and scale. Your holographic city. There's your cloud. Okay. Your pyramid is all lines, how it comes into lacing lines, communication lines, graph communication lines, 3 signatures, lines of panels, cosmic flame, serpent fire. That's what you're doing through the pyramid. Set lines of high direct signals, lines of 1 pyramid attractions, 3 lines of signals, and ground communication lines of surface and travel. So you're indicating lines of 3 platforms in 1 box frame, center core centers in 2 triangulation frame into 1 circle frame and travel. Okay. So it's really interesting when you get into that communication setting, all lines of torical fields and travel communications, all 3 directions, all through your holographic city, all through your cloud, and your geometry location, geometries and locations in trigonometry. All right, so going through the tri-screen is a bypass into lines of flux, into high core centers, into position, location, and measure that comes in all calculation setting. Ground lines of surface and travel and set attractions. Okay. On lines of grounds, setting position all levels and line communication setting, waving lines of screens. Setting platforms high centers, bring the dimensional door into another visual location existing all at once in set position to its setting. All through attractions. All right. Open all platforms and direct signals of grounds. Now we get a door handles in sequence, door and handles lines of screen location setting as acceptor. Setting ground lines of service over line, rotation, surface, and track communications in settings. So we get grounds now, we get the powers line. Power platforms lines of E factors over line, directed signals into all those tree lines, and core centers lines into all levels of trigonometry. Trigonometry adds line screens, setting lines of flux over 3, setting lines of 4 lines of setting of 6 over 7. 3 triangulation split lines of anomaly. Screen lines and center core system and lines of travel. 3 platforms. Now we have the ground lines of settings. Process lines of 2 over factors. Energize 3 platforms. Directed signal lines of grounds and center lines of surface and travel. In center operation, then we change the configuration lines of tone and set position lines of setting through Earth and space. Platitude lines of 3 signature lines. So now you're inside the tube, walking in screen adaptations into the other side lines and portal stargaze location of its wormhole. and travel communications. Indicates above in powers and then set lines of grounds and set position, inside tractions. Okay, inside track locations in line rotates to its setting and circuit lines of communication, lines of elements. Ground lines of service and travel communications. Okay, everything's done from inside outside, right? Okay, now setting core line centers. This is an XT 100,000 screen. XT 100,000 screen, but it's all happening through activity inside. Everything's inside. Everything's happening, existing all at once. So once you understand the measure and scale, everything balances out in frequency. How you see your holographic city or how you see your cloud. Okay? So basically, I understand the codification setting to encryption. Now, encryption is basically understanding how to go through E-factors, line screen locations of bypassing. You understand how to go through the reverberation system lines of travel, or how you core through its location setting into OLs, into trifactor. Now, trifactor is a box screen, 4 lines of signals and 4 centers. That's trifactor. So it doesn't matter, equal lines of 4, outline signals, 3 lines of signals. That's trifactor over circle. Circle over equals lines of 4 lines of setting, and trifactors over box. So in lines of triangulation here, in position 2 lines of measure and scale, box it in and set position all over the setting. Setting core centers is 3 platforms in setting and 3 lines of measure and scale. Okay, so I'm constantly creating what in setting position? It's pyramid traction, inside traction. Working with measure, working inside travel. Everything is in activity system inside. Nothing's outside of measure and scale. So all activity is happening inside and outside and inside of me in set position. Nothing is outside of anything in platform. Everything is done from inside travel and outside position. What changes that is you not understanding 12 measure, your 11 signals, and 10 lines of grounds at 10,000 measure. That puts lines of low frequency ground lines as surface distractions. You stay with inside your center of all operation system. Everything else is just empty space. Now, if you leave your 12 clocking system and you get into your 11 lines, it's split lines of anomalies in 4 cycles with 3 centers. Okay, that's 11. Now that's 10. You're living on 10 angles, 3 signal locations of past, present, and future now in timeline sequence. 12 lines of measure, outlines of scale. Overcross is lines of pi, lines of scale. Setting lines of core centers, split lines of 1 cycle of 2 track location settings. Process lines of the earth, set lines of center, and set position lines of space and travel. Okay, scales communication lines as tether. You attach and screen lines, vortex to the opposite set location. So, setting lines of core centers in the opposite direct signals through next 8,000. Lives in the past, present, and future in setting lines and position lines of 2 panels. 2 panels, lines of box frame, and position lines of triangulation over line screen. Adaptation lines of high position of circle or frame communication lines of 10 lines of setting and 12 lines of measure. Scales communication lines of grounds and center lines of service. Process lines indicates and cross line angles. You have 4 communication lines of 3 lines of flux, 3 angles, 4 lines of signals and travel. Okay, so get position line high centers in this way. Cross lines in the direct signal operate set location high center lines of travel communication through the system. And then we go through the platforms as E factors over screen. Okay, setting core centers, lines of travel, strict lines of grounds, constantly change information lines of settings and travel communication inside tractions. Okay, high centers, high scales, high communication with surface, all through inside rotation. Inside rotation. There's your earth inside of you. Let's bring it out. Your line core centers, lines of green. Remember, your temperature reading sets a barcode. Core centers, lines of forestry. This is the trigonometry. There's your nature settings. There's the trigonometry. The geometry is the change in shape. The geometric lines is setting. And then you have trigonometry that sets the course. Recourse lines, division location, direct and redirect location, setting your bypass until it's a trifactor. Setting box screens. My earth is going to be green and it's going to be black. Doesn't have to be anything in blue, doesn't have to be anything in red. It can be whatever it wants to be in line position. That's my earth. That's where it is in frequency. Nothing else, nothing more. Now, if I want to change that, well, I'm changing the geometric, so it's shape. Stays the same shape, but change the frequency. Stays at the same level, but change the frequency settings. Still my earth, though, inside. Change the directions, oh, that changes everything. Change the directions, oh, that changes everything. Inside position, right? So you have the earth rotating. All right, so the Earth is rotating in a line ground, since the gravitational pull. Overcross line screens adaptations of flux over screen adaptations of high settings. Process lines of indication system all through travel. Directing modification grounds. Center core system, over line, cross, locate, outline signal. Okay, setting perimeters lines, XT1000 sees you out of position in 2 lines of tractions. All right? Sets lines of signals, 3 lines of centers, 3 lines of grounds of communication. Okay, so it repositions your Earth. Yeah, it does. It repositions your Earth because you're offsetting. For you guys to recognize these things, it is a mop and it is a broom. So if you understand that traction is all false in location setting, you understand it's a dustpan. But bringing back the Earth is a security line panel taking you out of 12 back into 24, setting sequence lines of communication settings. So you're supposed to be here in travel communications and setting the surface. Put you back in balance, back in coloration lines of pattern, back in green. Set course center line direct signals and grounds. Setting communication highs, high positional levels, setting communication high position locations and setting through purple, black, and now I'm adding equation lines of screen adaptations of flux now. Setting recourse lines of channel, now I'm adding lines of orange because I'm going to get a higher lines of frequencies to its earth line rotation surface and travel and trigonometry, geometry, and course center location of the system. All through traction, all through inside track communication, my Earth, inside. There's the map. Okay, bring it in. There's the simulation of the map inside. And here's the set position location of the system, inside tractions. All right, so bring everything in, puts everything in line positions of balance, guys, in travel communications and setting. So you've seen the map from above, scanning lines, course centers, line of travel. But it's amazing what you can do through your Earth as it rotates its own system, right? XT1000 puts it back in platforms and sending lines of 2 panels, 2 tractions, 2 divisions. All right, so you got position 24 lines of measure, 24 lines of scale, and 24 lines of locations. Setting travels endpoint lines of graph at 12, setting lines of 12, setting lines of 12, setting lines of 12. In position 144 frequency. Setting travels back in ground lines and settings, 144,000 frequency. All right, then overcross the line calculated setting 1 is a platform setting over line cross location 3 lines of measure and scale. Setting course centers, Stargate measures, Stargate portals, line screen adaptation of 24 lines, position of past, present, future, and travel. Recourse settings, high position lines, inside line, rotation setting, in-track communications. Traffic and its runway, inside traction. Okay? So it's really interesting if you don't know how to direct and redirect your own Earth inside your system. So, stay at position location of 12 and stay in center of 24. Setting sequence lines ends at 48 lines of measure now and a 2-to-80 scale. Process lines of body frame, 1 arrow indicates lines of pattern. Setting lines of T receptors, box frame. We go through triangulation inside travel communications. And then we go through line signals. Box frame here, triangulation here, box frame here, and set position. All right, so we got a T receptor, line screening. Okay, and all of course. So it understands the triangulation, understands the box, and understands the box location. Right? 3 signals, 3 ground lines of service, overline sequence lines of pattern. Okay. Now they indicate line centers to have 3 lines of zeros, 3 zeros and lines into 1 frame. Okay. To all frames in flux over screen and direct signals to grounds. Okay. Setting card lines, high center interference, and line direct signals to ground communication lines of 1 signal, 1 traction, 1 location, high centers, high surface, and location. Okay. Now, on that line center has a center point lines and positional lulls. Okay, 2 systems of what? Your sonar, your echoes, and set position your satellite. 3 lines of flux, compass, lines of screen, adaptation. Indicates platforms as set lines inside traction and direction. Okay, flux over line, inside travel communications and setting. Right? Indicate lines of valve, 3 lines of signatures of me, and line screen adaptations, 3 lines of measure and scale. Crossing angles, Stargate portal, Stargate measure, and 3 lines of course centers, and 3 communication lines of grounds and 3 set tractions. Over cross line calculated set inside rotation surface in position lines of balance and travel. Okay? It's amazing when you see yourself inside of travel communications. Very powerful stuff, guys. Go within your system. That's your simulation. That's your map. All right, so we got in configuration lines and T reception lines. Code configuration system. Now we go through lines of zeros. We're going to apply to lines of graph lines. I know it's complicated stuff, but it's a lot of fun, right? So the triangulation has the flux lines of 0, 1 adaptations, 1 signal, and 2 lines of level. 0, 1, 2, right? So we take the 0, 1, 2. We change the offline into inline rotations outline and setting. Cross lines indicates in setting, and ground lines of surface and travels in a 45 angle. Ground lines of settings, process lines of 0, process lines of 1, process lines of 2, and set position of box. Flux over screen, sonar lines of 1, sonar lines of 2, sonar lines of 3, sonar lines of 4, and my earth line rotation surface and traction. Direct lines of the earth, rotates the surface, line direct signals, and ground lines of setting and travel. And set calculations. Ground lines, course centers, line direct signals, and modification lines, and portals, communication lines of all levels, dark ground, dark signals, dark matter, dark line communications, dark coursing, calculations, height travels, in position levels, black hole, and traffic communications. Sending direct signals of grounds, overline sequence over panels of communication lines of high setting. Process indicates and setting over side and line rotation over relay. Directing lines of grounds and 3 lines of signals, 3 lines of measure, and 3 lines of scale. 3, 3, 3. Inside tractions. Okay, inside position, there's your simulation, there's your grounds, there's your map. All right, guys. Very powerful when you get in that position to set lines of communications, eh? Look at that set position. Okay, it's a lot of fun. Back in sequence, back in panel, back in operation system and travel. Okay. Wind factors over lines. How we get into light webbing and dark webbing. All right. So 1/10 of a frame is how you equalize the box frame in triangulation. But you have to send the triangulation box first. Right? Sets lines of flux over 144 platform, sending lines of 24 grounds. We get 24 atmospheres and 24 lines of highways and travel. Okay? But your position lines as lines of high position location 24, set position 48, 72. 72 measure and a 48 frame into all lines of 144. Sending course centers and line direct signals and ground lines of service in a continuous force. Sending recourse line communication of configuration system and travel. Sending ground lines and recourse communication lines of high calculation sending and travel. Sending communication high centers in position of inside travels and 3 graph communications. 4 lines of signals, cross lines of angles, and platform communication, inside tractions. Okay, then we go through platforms of E, factors over screen, adaptations of flux. There's your map. All right, so we go through the intersections. Now we go through lacing lines, road graph over here, and indication over here, flux over screen, and go here in setting, all through operation system location. All right, now we indicate platforms here, and we go down here, and we overcross location here, and set lines of travel, inside tractions. All right, so the 24 lines of flux changes the lines of 48 measure. That scales communication lines in position of 34 times 2 as lines of 36 fields and 3 cycles and 3 centers and 3 travel. Sending lines of ground course centers in flux communication lines of grounds and provision. Okay, now the overcross line has 1x(1000) above the system location of travel. Okay, so we had 3 lines of grounds, crop circles, and 3 lines of measure and scale. Okay, and then we open up the panels that communicate inside travel communications in setting. Okay, process in communication lines of ground lines of surface and travel. Okay, so we have another x(1000) coming in another direction, and we have another x(1000) in another direct location, the 3 centers of 4 tractions. Different direct signals that we come into the ground lines of settings, process lines of blue, overline sequence lines of panel. And then we get in red into security lines of measure over across location lines of panel. And then we get in positions all over cloak and dagger and 3 lines of signals over panel and 3 track locations. And then we get inline screen adaptations and setting. Let's get into purple. We'll go into course centers. We'll change the fonts. And 3 direct signals and ground lines and set position all measure. Scales communication lines of 1 over lines of signal over lines of 3 platforms communication lines of grounds. And then we get in the course centers, change communication lines of pink, inside travels, and 3 platforms, and set tractions, and direct signal. And set tractions, direct signal locations. All right, so we go through platforms of E, that overcross lines in positional ovals, setting recourse lines of channels in platforms over setting, the cloak and dagger, and screen adaptation. Okay, process lines of signals over cross location inside and above the signal location of setting. Inside and outside through tractions. All right, so change that. We change that modification. We state with the 3 lines of symbols and travels inside line rotations to its crop circles, picking up in line position, measure, and scale. So we overcross the screen into black, 3 lines of signals and ground lines of surface subtractions. Okay, and then we change the platforms inside and line rotations into 45 split lines phenomenally. Okay, and then we add course lines, box, triangulation, and question and direct signals and grounds. Okay, this modifies the ground communication setting over line sequence of patterns and communication setting high lines to measure and scale. Okay, but it's all inside your system. It's all done from inside your system, guys. Okay, how you ground your settings in flux over screen, platforms over setting. Then you add your structures of your buildings and set position inside tractions, existing all at once in frame communications. Over line centers, high line rotation system, and 45 flux of communication as setting. Intelligence information lines and grounds. Set platforms here. E factors over lines and tubing screen adaptations of flux. Intelligence information. See the intelligence? Let's color it in green. So the actual intelligence is actually drawing this. I'm not drawing it, it's drawing itself. It's showing exactly what it is in position. This is the actual intelligence that created its image of what it is in all formation setting. When you let everything go, you start to recognize what the intelligence is going in positions of, existing all at once. It's changing the factors. What governs its system is all levels of what you see in travel. There's the intelligence. You want to see the eye lines? Let's bring in the black line screen. So that will case in red. You are. See? Everything creates its own system. It governs its own setting in space and time. Without time, you don't exist. But this is a good thing. That's where you're really coming into now. Then you don't question yourself anymore because you're stating the fact that, wow, General's right. So I do not exist. But it's how I exist and how I want to exist and how I perceive through consciousness. How I bring things in through encryption. How I bring things in through coding. Okay? All through your system of formula through equation settings of travel. But look, intelligence of its own information setting, giving you instructions how it gets in position in its own system. Hooah! But I just want you to understand how to create a map now inside settings. All through your cloud. Okay, all through your map, all through your holographic city. It's constantly changing information lines and grounds. All through your eyes, inside track communications, inside your system. So, measure and scales of balance all in set position. That's kind of travels. Okay, let's get 3 lines of ground, lines of surface in set position. All right? 3 questions over line. 4 setting and simplification side. And we go through black lines, 2 lines of tractions, some direct signals. Process lines of 2 lines of measure. Center core lines of question equals lines of 2. 2 equals lines of 3. 3 equals lines of 4. Set position of 7. Set lines of question. Set lines of D. X lines of 1. Trigonometry, geometry, and high course centers line position to its travel. And direct signals and grounds. Right? It's all done through a mapping sequence inside me in travel. Now I'm doing this. And the conscious awareness knows exactly what I'm doing. If I need help with this, that's totally fine. But it's not a one-way travel. It's not a one-way ticket. Okay? This is a one-way setting to all-way system. All right? Interaction. So, okay, it's like going around the world, but you're constantly going around the world again and again and again. But what you're going around again and again, you're setting lines of new data. You're processing your communication system. So you're not constantly getting stuck. It's your imagination gets stuck in psychological. If it's not in position of balance, it's off position of balance. You're on position, you're all through all levels of access. No access is all access. Okay? Now, if you don't understand the access, you understand the no access. No access is where you want to go. That formulates how you balance out your position, your thoughts, your action, emotions in travel communications. Okay, let's go through high centers, line position, all those in settings, travel. Let's just get into the question. Let's get into the question. See what I'm doing? That's all questions, right? Let's get into the question. This is all question, right? But it's creating something. Let's get into the question, all right? And let's get into question. Look what it created. Okay, now use your minds, the 9 lines of highest interference. You can see position location to a system all through travel. See? The eyes, the mouth, the nose. See? You put your mind to it, it knows exactly what it is in travel communication. I'm saying. Oh, look at that, another face. Faces on faces on faces, all through application from a question. Because you're not thinking, all right? The mind is not thinking. It's information lines that just existing and expanding and formulating a high position system all through travel. All through question. All through question. All through question. And all through question in set directions. Look at that amazing set position. Right? Bringing it in through travel. Okay? That's your webbing system. See? Changing the webbing. Changing the webbing. Okay, changing the webbing, constantly changing. Constantly changing. See? Constantly changing. Everything's changing. Everything's moving. And that's all through question. There's the face recognition, see? But this is what you can see through question. Questioning is not questioning your system. Questioning is not knowing your system of who you are in frequencies. So there's no levels of question of anything. It's how you see yourself through question. Question is not a question. Question is affinity 8. 1 point graph and 6. See, that's a 6. So it sets lines of 6, sequence lines of 8, sets lines of triangulation of flux. 3 perimeters, 3 centers, and 3 tractions. 3 position lines, cycles, 3 lines of centers, 8 lines of position lines of travel. Platforms 1, 2, 3, and set lines of 8. So of course, high calculations of platforms and plateau and travel communications. So of course, centers, high direct signals and window frame. Data communication lines and grounds. All position lines of 2 track lines and 3 lines of measure and scale. Okay, look at this in travel communications, all through setting. Okay, all through setting. Right? So what you guys have to start identifying is how to codify the system of 4 lines of angles and setting. Process up, process down, panels and set position, right? How to see line positions of an arrow indicating up, angles, and angles on 4 lines of communications, right? How do you see a box this way? How do you see a box this way? How to see a box this way? See different angles, right? And how to see a box this way? 2 panels, right? 2 panels. Okay, up screen lines of box. See? That's a platform, right? That you can travel through settings, right? Platform here, platform here, platform here. 4 settings. Okay, and then you got your panels. Your panels is your electrical fencing of your doors. You set position, all through measure, all through scale. Okay? And then you got your platforms. Okay? Then you got your position lines, central system, circulation, rotation. Right? You can change that too. Look at that and change. Changes all communication setting, high setting. Electrical fencing over cross location, ground lines as triangulations of flux over screen. Right? Platforms over lines, E factors over screen adaptations of flux over setting. Process of window. See the window? Look at the window. See the window? Boom. All right, so with graph communications, over line signals and graph communications setting to a TV receptor. There's the TV. Setting tractions. All right, so direct lines, modification, grounds. We're going to change the symbolism location setting, direct signals, and ground lines, and settings to reroute. Okay, change course, recourse lines, configuration setting, direct and redirect. Okay, recourse centers, over cross location, screen lines, adaptations of flux on the ceiling. Okay, setting lines of geometry lines, dimension lines of scales, 3-dimensional door screens locations. Overline signals, the platforms over trap locations. Okay, so it really does get Dr. Strange inside and outside traction. Inside and outside, guys, all at once. So everything is existing inside and outside of you on a 4-angle split line anomaly. Okay, in all set position. Okay, but how you see it through formula is knowing how to calculate and modify. If I get a 45 line and position lines of 54 tractions, I'm adding that and setting, right? Because I'm adding an equation. So I can add 50 lines because I know it's in 54. Setting position of 40 lines of measure. Question lines of question. Setting communication lines of 25 lines of measure. Setting communication lines of 10 signals and set tractions. All right, so that modificates the system all through live. Living the intelligence forever existing. See? L-I-V-E. I didn't make a mistake. I just changed the V into an F. Living the intelligence forever existing. See? Caught you in an I. See, you got to get out of how you see things alive because it constantly changes the frequency. So live is never live because it's constantly changing the system. That's how you guys have to get out of resistance lines of platforms and one-dimensional thinking in a three-dimensional mind. Or one-dimensional line signals in position of five-dimensional thinking of a mind. You got to get out of thinking of everything and codify it through your own system, location formulas, do equations, and set attractions. So live is not live because it's constantly changing the L, the I, the V, and the E in a continuous force. And a four-setting line communication setting, split lines of anomalies, and a four-track correlation set north, east, west, and south, guys. Okay? All through volume, all through vast, all through acceleration, Mach, and set position of travel. Clocking system, there's pi. Okay? Pretty simple, right? But that's what it is. When you see a box, you're seeing a box in four angles all at once. North, east, west, and south, right? North, east, west, and south. Let's start with that. South doesn't have to be here. South can be all at once. South is not this. That's not south. South could be this. South could be this. South could be this. I don't need north. I don't need east. I don't need west. I don't need south. I know what it is because I'm codifying it through encryption, through my own setting, through its own geometry, to its trigonometry, to its geometry, and set position lines of travel, right? So I tell you exactly how I see the volume, how I see the mass, and how I see the factors over screen. I'm in control of what I see. I'm in control of what I do because everything's existing and evolving all at once. Time measure, time scale, time balance. So if you understand your space, you should be able to understand your spaceless. Time, timeless. Form, formless. Shape, shapeless. Motion, motionless. Sense, senseless. That's what you got to come into is direct and redirect. How you see your box in a four-angle setting in travel. It's just in four. Now you come into the center. Now you come into pi. Your pi is going around the system of four angles. Into 5 angles, 6 angles, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 angles, 24 angles. That's 24 angles of pi into position north, east, west, and south. Okay, that's pi from east and south. That's pi from north and west. Setting platforms of communication setting timelines of surface interaction. Box frame communication setting to a computer frame track location. Here's your computer. Setting direct signals to grounds, 3 lines of flux, over 3 lines of measure and scale. Open line window frame, Stargate measure, Stargate portal, Stargate ground lines, course centers existing all at once. Setting platforms on communication setting and center operation system and 24 communications. All through attractions. All inside my provision lines of cycles. Okay, through simulation. Oh, look at that. See, it doesn't need to create. Look at the light coming in. See, it's changing the frame. See? If I change the angle, you're going to see it on a different formation of a different shape. Look at it. It's constantly changing. Okay? And you see the light coming in, but it's constantly changing its form. It's traveling now. See, look, it's traveling. So you can see it traveling. Traveling, right? It's traveling through. So don't look at this. Look at me. Don't look at me. Look beyond. And then you see it travel. So your imagination is everything in travel communication. Now it's traveling up. See? Now it's traveling down. See? Now it's traveling around in set position. Okay? That's what you got to get into modifications of. All through tractions, all through time measure, all through compass. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? And it's all inside. See? All inside. All inside. Traveling. Can't see it from here, guys. Can't see it from here until you identify it inside your system locations. There it is in travel. Okay? Bring it back Harmonic equations and panel communication lines and setting. Okay, so formula equations. So what your test is based on through encryption, high levels of settings, I want you guys to indicate that. So I want you to get into a box frame and create the perimeters around the system, inside and outside, through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Okay, foregrounds, platform here over sequence. Setting platform here, setting platform here, and setting platform here in sequence. Okay, and then we have our window frame. You need a window frame to energy line screen datations, box frames into platforms, and set tractions. Okay, and then you get a high core centers into perimeters, parameters, encoding systems, subcode configuration system, all through travel. So all I want to see from you is different lines of communication setting all through tractions and direction. How to see it in all formation setting through dimensional door. See, different angles, different point lines of graph. As soon as you have the perimeters, you're changing the platforms of angles and travel. All through your pyramid and travel communicate inside travel communication. There's your pyramid. Inside, right? Your pyramid's here. Everything's inside. Nothing is outside settings. Okay, set position here. Setting tractions and direct signals. Ground lines and setting locations. Okay. Setting lines of track center location of the system. Oh. And then you go this way. In setting. Okay. And then you go this way in setting. Okay. And then you go this way in setting. How you want to see is how you perceive things through window frames. That's why I don't want you guys to focus just on this. I want you to turn yourself upside down and know exactly how to communicate your phone on a 4-angle set position, all existing all at once. Because everything's rotating and surfacing through you, existing all of you, and all setting, all time, measure, all at once. See, we're not ready to see that frequencies. All through schematics, all through primer circuits and travel. There he goes in set position locations. Very confusing to the mind. But it's all conception inside of you. But how you see through window frame, an energy frame, a track frame, a center frame, a high core centers line communication, high settings, all direct signals and grounds. And then you just open up the window. You open up the plasma. You open up all track locations, all existing, all at once in set position to locations. All through tractions, all through communications. Through the eyes, the windows of the soul. Okay? Oh yeah. Seeing all different angles, right? All different angles. Okay? All different angles. Not just the one angle, seeing all 4 angles in setting. All through travel, all through mechanism. And then you can platform up. Then you can cross angles and set position locations. See it in all different angles. See, platforms over here. Okay, and then you cross angles, platforms over here. Set position. Okay. But you're constantly changing the formation lines of grounds, powers, and apertures, seconds, minutes, and hours. All through, you guessed it, face recognition. Booyah. Face recognition. And there's the window. Right there in setting. You add color, it changes all formation grounds. That's graded set lines inside and outside location. Okay, and let's get into blue, over cross inside tractions, overlapping sequence lines of panel. Then let's get into box frame, correlations of pixelation grounds, holographic set positional levels of 3 measuring scale. Let's open all sequence and panel of communication setting, leasing lines of tractions, inside tractions. Inside locations, inside lines, and streaming direct signal location of the system, inside tractions. All through TV, inside system, leasing lines of travel. Okay. There, everything's travel. There's the simulation. And there's a simulation, see? You don't need to create structure because it's already in set position. Okay? You don't need to create structure because it's already in set position. You just have to recognize your simulation outside to understand yourself inside of your T receptor. At all different angles and travel. You want to have it stand out? Well, bring it in red. Okay? Outline the red in set position. Bring it up the equation. Okay? It's amazing when you start recognizing what you're doing through travel. all through directions, all through setting. Inside communications. Now what stands that out is how you get into the grounds. Colors, lines of panels, 4 lines of flux, 3 angles, setting communication lines, electrical panels, electrical walls, and screen adaptation. Right? Adding angles now, adding ceilings, adding volume and set directions. Just adding color to it. It's all red. Set directions. Right? So how you want to see it, you see how you want to see it through light and how you want to see it through dark in set position. Okay? How you want to see it through light and how you want to see it through dark. How you want to see it through light and how you want to see it through dark inside directions. Okay? Through face recognition. See the face? There's always a face there, guys. So, there's a lot to be discussed. Know exactly how to hit set position, location, measure, and scale. This helps you in all guidance locations in your system, well through modification lines, how you see it through a box, through 3 lines and settings, inside directions, and 3 lines of measure and 4 settings, or 3 lines of signals here. See? This is what you have to come into, clocking system. 4 lines of 3 signals out, or 4 lines of signals to 3 lines of signals in. Right? And then you add 2 lines of measure, and then you add 1 lines of 0, 1, and set position outline. This is all through a clock, all through system. That's a clock. Okay, very complicated stuff, but it's all through numbers. Once you get into 0, 1 platform, it changes everything in traction. Now you have to have point centers and set position of 3 point lines of 0, point lines of 1, equals lines of 3, equals lines of flux and travel. Okay, how you scale that is how you go through your set position, your Schumann resonance. So the mind itself is the intelligence of formations of 3 lines of signals, lines of 0, lines of 3 gravity. So they course lines in pi over lines of the indication system and dots of screen. 3 lines of signals over cross locations and set tractions. Okay? Measures and scales and platforms of 3 lines of signals, 3 lines of grounds, and 3 lines of measure and scale communications inside traction. Over line signals over lines of 7 over sequence over lines of flux over screen. Directing lines of measure and scale communicates inside communication with setting. Formula through equation. Right, directing signals, 3 lines of grounds, overline signal case setting, measure and scale. So what you guys have to understand is see it not just in a 4-angle communications, but also see it on a different line of an angle, from this angle, from this angle. Okay, so you're looking at a wall, but that wall is all different angles all at once. So it's aligned, you're seeing it at all different levels. You see it from the ceiling, you see it from the panels, you see it from below, you're seeing it everywhere in tractions, all right? So when you're doing this, all you're doing is line signaling and put it in position, right? You're pivoting your system. You start with this, and then when you come into this angle, you come into line balance. And you can see the formula, you can see the phrasing, you can see the line track centers to its location system. You go from this to this. All you're doing is pivoting your body. You don't have to move your hands, okay? So what you have to understand is how to pivot the solar graph. That is your solar generator. That course is recourse centers as center lines of pivots that sets a solar track correlation system of center operations and setting the balance. Overline sequence lines energy grids and over cross location setting to eye track location to a system inside traction. And remember guys, this is all inside your eye. There's your eye. This is all happening inside your eye. Okay? Inside. All right, of 4-line signals in set position through its formula, through its equation. Okay? So use your imagination inside and track location, outside line settings. Have really fun with it, you know, all through structure. This is the levels of the set location. This is the highway inside the simulation. Right? And then you have, oh, look at something coming in. Am I consciously aware what I'm bringing in? Uh-oh. Right? So you're here. This is you. That's you. Right? So that's you going here, right? So you overline the sequence and you get it out, it disappeared. It's not there anymore. Right? So you took it over here, you took it over here, and you took it over here. Took it out of the equation. You filtered it out. Now it's in position back of balance. Now you can outline signals and travel any communication setting to travel and have a direct line link with your system all through set positions, all through operation setting and travel. Okay? But look at it. It's amazing. Inside and outside line positions with formula through this equation. Right? Continue on. But you can't continue on if something overrides your system. Let's bring this in equation. Look at this. Uh-oh, what's going on here? I didn't want to bring that in. Okay, let's bring in another coloration. That's overriding your formula through equation settings. So you forgot to filter your system and travel. But it's all coming in. It's affecting your system because you're not identifying the emotional lines of attractions. Right? So how are you going to get rid of that? From this? Nope. From bringing it inside. One step at a time. You know exactly what you're looking at. Once you know what you're exactly looking at, you can erase it out. It disappears in set positions, all calculated setting. No more problem in attractions. Disappears in set position locations. It's not there anymore. It's gone. Right? It disappears, see? Out of nowhere. It shadow lines the communication setting, overline sequence of codification setting, all levels of coloration screen locations. Puts everything in track cases back in balance location settings to emotional system. All through attractions. Gone. Now you're just seeing the white page of light. Right? See? You took it out. Same with the blue. And same with the purple. Because if you don't take these things out, your emotional system is taking over lines of your parameters, and how you recourse your system can vary in setting to direct and redirect. In that position to set lines. So you constantly go into highlines, codify your system locations, copy and paste, enabled, erase if you have to in travel. It's not there anymore. It's gone, right? So all you do now is overlap the sequence back in solar panel. You can set position on highline centers, open all sequence locations to a system. Higher levels of travel, so it doesn't affect your system because you're putting higher lines of force. Higher lines of energy, force, and fields in set position to your system. Changing line direct signals, the ground lines of setting locates to its system. All through measure, all through scale, all through balance. A 3-3-3, see? 3-3-3, back in balance. Ooh-ah. And then it travels through itself, see? It's traveling by itself because it's back in order now. Okay? So, but really get into this position. Okay, I need you guys to understand how to use the triangulations of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. So I want the team, this is your test. Your test is based on triangulation. It's good in the box. Okay, I need you guys to get out of the mind, out of sync, out of set position, right? Triangulation outside. So 3 here, 3 inside. 3 here, 3 inside through triangulation box. So different clocking here, different clocking here, different clocking here, different clocking here, because that's inside, that's out. It's inside, outside. That's where you got to get provisions. So you understand how to use the kaleidoscope in and end set position out. Then position lines of in and position lines of out. All through kaleidoscope with direct signals. In set position. All right? Then you get in your clocking system with 2 lines of travel. Okay? So you got a triangulation here, flux here, 3 settings. There's the intelligence. There's the clocking of the face. Same with the box. Okay. They all have face recognition. They start off in attractions. See the face and triangle and the box? There it is. Now you can start. Starting with that position, then you get a position lines of balance, location to its constant, where it's coming from, and travel communication, all of it's existing all at once. If you get a 24 ground and 10 lines of measure into 1 hour, in position of 1, 13 travels, in position of 15, 2 lines of clocking, set lines of communication, lines of 3 lines of setting. I'm in control with the 24. I'm in control of the 10, and I'm in control of location, setting, and time. Set in position, all levels of its appearance set inside track communications, inside and outside. So inside, outside. Inside, outside. Okay? This is out of frame. That's your 12 clocking. Don't go there. Stay with outside. You got to get provisions how to go through clocking centers in position 24 out, 24 in, and 24 grounds. Okay, so you got 24 grounds, 24 centers, and 24 atmosphere. Through a triangulation. Through a box inside your pyramid. Monitors your system in the 3 lines of windows of frame communication setting to travel, guys. All 3 platforms have communication lines of angles and travel communication setting high lines of force. Platforms 1, 2, and 3 set line communications. Okay. So again, setting position all this in encryption. That's what you got to get in positions high centers. Knowing exactly what you're doing with your lines through schematics. Because if you don't know what you're doing through schematics, you're always going to put yourself in a question. That's it. You're questioning yourself. You're not questioning your mind, you're questioning yourself. You're not questioning the mind because the mind's already set it up. So what are you questioning? The body you're in, not the body itself. Okay? Then you understand the balance of 3. Then you understand the balance of 4 inside position. Then you understand the balance of flux and 3 lines of screen adaptation. Then you balance communication lines of high security line division. Then you understand the box and set lines inside track release and sitting and 3 lines of measure and screen lines of adaptation. Triangulation in the box and 3 lines of measure and scale and security line defense line. Inside, 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 outside. Into an energetic dome and screen adaptation. All through flux, all through screen, all through adaptations, all through travel and communications. Okay? And this is your traffic. This is your grounds. This is your map inside. Your map is inside. Inside, right? Recourse centers. What's that? Travel. It's traveling on its own. Oh, look at it. It's gotten bigger. See? Oh, it's gotten bigger. See? Oh, it's gotten bigger. See? Making you lose high centers in line communications out of emotion line track centers in configuration system author travel. See? Bringing lines of sequence, bringing lines of panels, and 3 communications in setting. Overlapping sequence here in travel. Okay, let's bring in the red signals. So to modify that is overlapping sequence, the 3 panels of communication setting travel. Setting lines of settings, let's bring in all levels into gold. Setting sequence, lines of panel. Setting sequence, setting communications, setting travel. Overlying panels and communication setting the surface. Whoa. Now, in that position, you can't see it, right? But it's there. It's still there. It never left. It's still there. See? There it is in setting. Okay? So you're looking above, and now you see in the map what you did. Then you see your highways. There's a highway here. There's another highway here. All right? But you can't see it from here. You got to bring it in to see it. All right? And then you know exactly what you're bringing in, conscious of its awareness, so its thoughts, actions, its motions. If you're not consciously aware, it's going to take over your system. Here, here, and here. Okay? That's not supposed to be there, but you brought it in. So you overlapping patterns. Change all lines, go lines of 1 in position of 2 over 3 instructions. Okay, overlaps the sequence. Setting lines, screen adaptations, all travel communications, right? Scales, communication lines, back and balance, all formation lines of grounds. Setting sequence, but your position lines continue on now. It's on your game board. And setting positions. If you want to take it out of the equation, well, just wipe it out. See, but you continue on in 3 lines of signals and settings, all through communications. Okay, it's not there anymore, is it? It's gone. Just this now. Okay, but to see the travels is inside positions, all through directions. Okay, you can't see anything from here. Oh, it's moving itself, right? But look, I'll show you. It knows what it's doing through travel, all through directions, all through directions, all through signal, all through modification. Okay, traveling all at once, see? No balance off, no correlations off, no travels and direct signals off. Not in my position of anything in travel into confusion, right? Let's get in positions. I love working with Fibonacci's. Fibonacci settings in one cycle. But it travels. in the same directions, existing all at once, just expanding and evolving, right? So it's communicating with you, but it's communicating with everything else all at once. It clocks its own system of its own operation setting, guys. If I go the opposite way, it's not going the opposite way. It's going in the same direction. Just because I'm doing this doesn't mean I'm doing that. That's a program. If I go this way, change the Fibonacci this way and travel, it still goes in the same direction. Except you're seeing more massive volume now of structured design. If I had a box frame over line rotation and setting, it's still going to travel in the same directions. Okay, but now you see the box and the translations of both settings, one opposite in direct signals to the other set position. So if I'm going clockwise, I'm going clockwise and counterclockwise all at once. If I'm going counterclockwise, I'm going counterclockwise and clockwise all at once. Right? So that's why I like working with that. And when you work with high volume, you come in this cycle through part acceleration. Fibonacci here, Fibonacci here, Fibonacci here, Fibonacci here in center, Fibonacci here in set position. But it's all going together. Circulates in the same direction, right? But they're on different locations. So don't get confused with that. They're on different locations, different coordinates, but they're existing together all at once. Travel line, direct signals, and ground lines of setting. Okay, all traveling out together in confirmation, inside travel communications, inside setting, in through your structure of your simulation. Okay, your traffic. Your traffic is always inside. Okay, always inside through platform. Okay, but everything's constantly traveling, guys. That's all it is. It's constantly traveling. Amazing. What is it? Amazing. Something's coming in. My space. See? Look at that. Space traveling. Whoa! Let's bring in lines of gold. What's going on there? Whoa. All right, so it's amazing when you can change settings of form. Oh, got some red in there. And let's get a little bit of purple. There we go. Whoa, 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 whoa. Starlight, star bright, what I see tonight. So I can travel down, I can travel up. Oh my gosh, what is this? This looks amazing. What is that? Whoa. All right, let's recourse into blue. There we go. Boom. Hooah. 3 colorations of one. Not one color of one setting. 3 colorations of one. Blue, red, and gold. And purple. 4. Oh, where'd that come from? That came from nowhere. Whoa, that just came in. Must want to say hi. Saying just changed communication lines of direct signals to grounds. Set position operation signal and location system all through travel. Still traveling now. And different lines of travel. Okay? Different lines of lights. Let's get into orange. Okay? Let's change the time sequence. Time measure, time scale. Let's bring in line position levels and set tractions. Okay? Indirect signals and grounds. And set position. Right? It's your imagination that puts everything all together, guys, and how you see things. Information is bringing in things in travel. Okay? Bringing things in travel. Okay? Ground line service, solar graph communication lines of whatever screen. Solar line inside travel communications. Okay, overcross lines and signal lines. Modifications, high centers and lines of communication lines and settings. Okay, and then we override the sequence. Look at that in travel. Whoa! Now let's bring in Pluto. There's Pluto. All right. All right, let's bring in line communications to Jupiter. There's Jupiter right there in the bottom. So I'm just trying to show you how powerful it is to see everything in locations where space can be anywhere it wants to be, existing all at once in all platforms and settings. All right, let's go through high core centers. Let's go through Stargates. Let's set up a Stargate location setting the black sequence location across lines. Setting Stargate line communication system all through travel. Start with that setting. Oh, it's getting interesting. And they're going to modify the grounds, line position over course, overline signals, in the ground lines of service, inside rotation, outside traction. In set position. And they're going to change the recourse lines of direct signals, the ground lines of surface interaction. It's getting exciting. All right, so we outline the sequence of panels and set position lines of travel. Okay. And position lines of high centers. Jupiter decides to travel here. Over here in signal. Okay, so Jupiter's there now. Solar graph screen comes in line communication set. Let's go to the orange track centers, line direct signals. Center line position operation cycle. A lot of traffic inventory and set position location with system all through calculations. All through inside line rotation. Pluto. Say hello. Pluto comes in all formation settings and grounds in set position. See how it travels on its own? All right, so it sets course centers, line XT1000, process lines, direct signals of 1, in position of 2 over 3 lines of measure. Okay, bring it up settings, line signals. Look at that in correlation. A lot of activity, location of space line, and setting and location of travel. Let's just have direct signals and grounds. Whoa. All right, so let's go through a black hole. Black hole over here in travel. Whoa. Over cross locations here. Cross symbolism lines of track centers, line communications. Then we go right to signals, lines of center point graph. Setting course centers, lines of communication lines, and lines of locations in yellow. Now yellow overlines the sequence of solar panels and set lines of center communication in this setting. Outlines grounds, center surface and travel communications. Open all signals and line communication lines of ground communications. Off the setting. A lot of activity here in set position location of system, off the line position all levels of Pluto. All right, so it's amazing what you can do when you're just basically knowing exactly what's happening in its structure of design. Its attractions. Okay? And look at that. It's all in space. That's space. Can't see it from here. But you can definitely see it from inside position of you. What's going on in setting? All through traction. Whoa, exciting. Stop seeing things inside and start to see everything inside your system. All through the eye. See? All through the eye. There's the eye. Booyah. There's the eye. All through the eye setting. See the intelligence? See the eye lines? Set positions? There's intelligence right there setting with its smile. See? Have fun and travel. Okay? So where does space come from? Inside you. So it's a more set position, right? Doing this isn't space. Color reading space. Space is already set up. This is not space through a box frame. This is not space. It's already set up. That's not space inside. Space is already set up through structure of design. This is space. That's space. It's already set up in the mind. It's already set up in the mind. All right, so when you draw the picture, it's already done through its equation, all through travel and position, location, and calculation. All inside. This is space. That's space. Now something's coming in space. Whoa, what's that? The signal lines, configuration system lines of travel. That's space, guys. Right, so you don't create space. Space is already created through the mind itself. Set position locations and settings. That's space. See? Doesn't matter how you see it, but it's all levels of space inside you. That's happening all at once in a configuration system. See? Space, people. Space. There's space. There's real space. All right? Okay, Neptune. Okay? All right, triangulation flux over 3. Ground lines and settings. Process lines of green. inside core system. Oh, change settings and travel. Change settings and travel. Change settings and travel. Still space though. See? That's how you see space. So you don't construct space. It's already there. All you got to do is see it from inside your system. That's how it evolves your settings. Change the coloration, change the time. Okay? All inside your system. That's space. You can bring back in black if you want. Doesn't matter. It says lines communication system and travel. There's your galaxy. See? Galaxy. See? You mark it in territory. Okay, and then you work outside because it's already set inside. So the mine's already set up. The structure's already setting. All you're doing is changing coloration. See? Bringing in space. Different angles, different frames, different communications. That's space inside you. You're changing everything. Ground lines, set positions. There's your galaxy setting. Hooah! Cool, right? So you really don't have to do anything, do you? Because it's already done. That's space. All right, guys? So there we go. Now you understand the importance? Where you don't have to do anything because it's already done through the mind? Space is already set up. It's the body have to come into alignment now and set directions. All right? See you guys in 5.